Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 307. In this episode, you're going to hear from Dr. Sheila Carroll. And Dr. Sheila is a board certified pediatrician and obesity medicine physician. And she is dedicated to helping children achieve their best health. And she does this by working exclusively with the parents who are willing to focus on modifying their own behaviors to ultimately improve their child's health. So this episode is so good. We talk all about children's health, and she has some different things that I haven't heard so much before. And it's really worth a listen, especially if you want your children to be healthy. And we also talk about her traveling to Nepal and mom guilt and how she deals with it and how our thoughts really affect our day-to-day life. So make sure you listen to this episode because it is so stinking good, especially you moms out there. This is one for you, or you parents out there. This is one that you want to listen to. So if you're loving this podcast, head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. Every single one helps. Can you even believe that we're 307 episodes into the show? And part of that is for you leaving a podcast review so that other badasses just like you can find the show. And it means the world to me. So head on over to iTunes, leave a review. And with that, let's get to the episode already.
Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Sheila Carroll. Sheila, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Well, depends on the day, I guess. Some days I feel super badass, and some days I feel, I'm ordinary today. But I think they're both totally fine, and I embrace feeling both of those, the whole spectrum.
What makes you feel badass?
When I know that I'm doing what I believe is the right thing for me to be doing, even if it's hard, even if it takes a little bit of courage, even if I feel like I'm going to get pushback from people, when I am kind of doing what I think is the right thing, either for myself or my child, or, I'm a sports coach too, and like the team I'm on, whatever, when I feel like I am, or for my patients, when I feel like I'm doing the right thing or what I consider to be the best thing for myself and the people around me, then I feel very strong and confident and badass.
Sometimes people are like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what's best for me. What would you say to that? Or how do you tap into understanding what it is that you want or what's best for you?
Yeah, and I think I spent a lot of years that way myself. And then I kind of got introduced to coaching, and coaching has crystallized that for me, meaning that with coaching and learning to think about your thinking, you can think on purpose, and you can actually create, for example, like if I have an upcoming meeting, or if I have or even like an interaction with my son, and I say to myself, how do I want to show up for myself and my child at this time? And so you can kind of pre-plan. So what are the thoughts I'm going to need to be feeling strong and confident and helpful and compassionate? All the feelings you want, going one step back, there's always a thought right before that creates that feeling in you. So if you're struggling to know, like, I'm not even sure what I want to do, it would be important you could ask yourself, well, how do I want to feel? And then when you decide what that feeling is, you go back and say, okay, well, what are the thoughts I need to be thinking to create that feeling for myself? And that opens up, and that's like an access to creating the experience you want to have.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. So it's what do I want to feel? And then what are the thoughts that I need to be thinking to have that feeling? Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I
And
can't wait.
you can also do it kind of the other way. What is the thought I want to have? For example, you could have the thought like everything is okay right now, you know, and and if you're thinking that, you might be calm, or, a little bit more relaxed versus, a thought of, I don't know what's happening, or I feel out of control. And so I think just for people to become aware of the unconscious thoughts that we're having that are creating a lot of our feelings and the fact that we can become aware of those unconscious thoughts and look at them and ask ourselves, like, is this thought actually helping me and creating the experience of my life that I want, or is it not? And do I feel like, or do I want to change it in any way?
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I feel like it's underestimated, like how much our thoughts are like drama and they can draw us
Yeah.
into feeling, crappy or a certain way about ourselves that's not even true.
100%, 100%. And so many of the thoughts, so the experts say like we have 60,000 thoughts a day. Like, it's just a super highway up there. Thought, thought, thought. And a lot of them are programmed from early, when we were kids, and we just keep thinking them just because they're well-worn pathways. But if you can slow that down, and one way to do that is journaling, and and we call it a thought download. So you just kind of, even just 5 minutes, kind of just free write all of your thought, all of what's upstairs in your brain. And then you realize, like, oh, these are just my thoughts. Because sometimes we get really confused, like, we think our thoughts are actually facts when really they're just thoughts about something. It's very freeing once you start to practice, do this practice, because you're like, oh, wow, I have so much influence over my own experience in the world.
Yes, yes. A book I read about that like blew my mind was The Untethered Soul by now I just for Michael Singer. Um
I haven't read that book. Is it good?
it's so good. It's so good. And
Yeah.
it's all about like thoughts and how they're, you just watch them pass you by and don't have to
Yeah.
attach to them because like you said, they kind of make your emotions feel certain ways, even though the thought isn't true. It has nothing to do with, anything, or it's something from like way from your past.
Yeah, for sure.
So I can't wait. I know this is going to be so good. Let's dig in. Will you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I am my professional life. I could talk about that for just a minute. I am a board certified pediatrician and an obesity medicine physician. I'm also a life and weight coach for parents of kids who are struggling with extra weight. I consider my greatest accomplishment to be I'm a mom of, I have an 11-year-old son. I am a single parent. I'm an only parent, really. I had a divorce, and my son's dad lives in Africa, so he's not even here with us. So I consider that a badass moment for me, meaning I'm a single, I say only parent. And that can be, I find that stressful sometimes, especially when he's sick, or when something's happening and I'm like, oh, I wish I had someone to talk about things with but so that's kind of me. I'm born and raised in Maine. I live up here. We live up in Maine and we love it up here. I love to travel. I consider that some of my badass moments, like solo traveling. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I've trekked in the Himalayas with this amazing medical company called Himalayan Healthcare, providing free medical care to people in Nepal. Been in India, China. I used to love to travel. I don't travel anymore that much because of being a mom and being local and COVID, obviously.
So much that I want to dig into there. You talked about parenting alone and how that can be stressful. How do you navigate those stressful times?
Yeah, I honestly, I do have a confidence in myself, and I have a lot of compassion for myself, and I say I'm doing the best I can. And I always look like, my son's name is Theo, and I'm always like, is Theo okay right now? And am I okay right now? And that helps ground me into the moment. And, when things are stressful or worrying, and try not to, worry about the future. But, so I just, and I truly believe, and this is true for me, but I believe it's true for every parent, like, we're doing the best we can with what we have in the moment. And that doesn't mean it can't be better down the line, and we can work towards that if we want to. But I think I just accept I'm going to make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, I think, as a parent too, and as a person. But I've really come to value admitting my mistakes, or just talking about them, and the repair situation, repairing with your child, or repairing, and moving on. And nobody's perfect. And yeah, so I don't know, I'm just doing the best I can. I never planned to be a single parent. I never planned for that to happen. I was married, and our marriage ended. And so here I am. So what am I going to do? We got to go forward.
So you mentioned admitting when you're wrong, or admitting when you make a mistake. What does that look like? Is that saying, like, telling your kid you made a mistake, or is it telling a friend?
Sure.
What is it?
Yeah, like I would say, I can sometimes I yell at my son sometimes. I'm trying to get better at that. But sometimes, I just it works. So why do I yell at him? Because it works. It stops him from doing what he's doing. Like, get on your shoes, get on your shoes, get on your shoe. You know what I mean? And then, that's a simple one. But if sometimes sometimes I also am a little harsh. I can be a little harsh. In my opinion, I'm a little harsh. And so if I feel like I've said something that's sharp or something, when I realize that I've done that, I just say, Theo, I'm really sorry that I used that tone, or I said that, and that wasn't my best self. And I just want to apologize, and I want to see if you're okay and make sure you're okay. And my son is so easygoing. He's like, Mom, it's fine. Mom, it's fine. And he's always been so kind, about that. And so that makes it easy for me. But I started doing that a long time ago with him. And also I love that because I feel like, in a way, I'm modeling that behavior for him. So he's good at, when he makes a mistake, or when he feels he did something wrong, he doesn't try to pretend it didn't happen. He doesn't resist it. He's able to say, oh, sorry. Last night he tried to trip me. Well, what happened was, it was late, and I was telling him to shut down the computer, and he wasn't too happy about that. And when I walked by him, he stuck his leg out. And I think it was just reflexive of him, but I actually almost tripped. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. He goes, I don't even know why I did that. And so it was just really interesting, to have him be able to feel comfortable, and he didn't get mad. And so anyways, that's just a little side story.
So I think something that the listeners feel often is mom guilt. Do you ever experience that feeling of mom guilt, and how do you deal with it?
Well, sometimes, yes, yes, of course. I think sometimes I do feel, um, for a long time I did feel guilty in a way that my son only has one parent, because that was never my intention. And I kind of wondered, will this harm him? Will this be, you know, I just was or just not sure. But then and I felt badly. I felt badly myself that was his situation. But then again, I just came to the point of, I'm doing the best I can, and that has to be good enough. And I can't do better than I can do. And I'm trying my hardest. And um, you know, I guess the other question is, when you think about guilt, and you really can ask yourself, like, is 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 this helping me live the way I want to live now? You can look at it and think about it and understand what caused that feeling of guilt, but there's always a thought. So if you're feeling guilty about something, there's always a thought. I shouldn't have done that, or I messed up, or whatever that thought is for you. And then when you figure out that thought, you you can ask yourself, like, do I want to keep thinking this? Because we already talked about how our thoughts create our feelings, but our feelings drive our actions. So what kind of actions do you take from feeling guilty?
Mhm.
They're probably not as helpful actions or positive actions, or constructive actions, it from if you're feeling a different feeling, confident or secure or repaired with whatever interaction it was. And so, yeah, so I would encourage moms to be compassionate with themselves and treat themselves like they treat their friends, or treat their children, and just have some self-compassion, and realize it's not benefiting you or anyone for you to stay in that guilty feeling. um, and you can recognize it and deal with it and process it, and then move on from there.
And I would say this is like a lifetime journey, right? Like it's like
For
you
sure.
work on it a little bit, and I think over time it gets better and better. But it's like it's one of those things that's never gonna end. Like,
Right.
we always think like we just want the quick cure. What's the thing that's just gonna solve it tomorrow? But it's more like a lifetime journey of looking at your thoughts and trying to figure it out, so that really it's happiness, I think.
Yeah, it's freedom, really. It's freedom to understand why you're feeling what you're feeling, and realizing that the you're the one creating your own experience in the world. And so it's not your boss that makes you mad. It's not the guy that cut you off. It's your thoughts about that situation. And once you realize that, you're like, oh, okay, I can have a different experience of this.
Totally. So earlier when we're going through your bio, you talked a little bit about solo traveling.
Mm.
I think people get so scared to travel by themselves, even if it's just for like a short trip, or if they're going to be with people once they get there, but just like the whole traveling by themselves thing terrifies people. Will you talk a little bit about your experiences traveling solo?
Sure. I started, I just was, I think, wired like that as a child. I went to Italy by myself. Um, well, with a study group, like with a exchange family group, but I was the only person I knew, and I was a junior in high school when I did that. And I had never been out of the country before. And I have just always wanted to travel. So it's and it's so funny. And I have a sister who has it doesn't have that desire. She does. She's I think she's been to maybe Mexico, but that's on vacation and that's it. But it just was within me. So I didn't have the thoughts like, oh, I'm worried or I'm scared or I don't want to do this. My thought was the opposite. I want to do this. So, it can be challenging, certainly, to travel. And it's really eye-opening experience for yourself. It's so powerful to travel by yourself. But yeah, I've been a bunch of different places, and hope to keep going. Hope to keep increase my travel as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that sometimes it feels a little bit daunting, or okay, I like to travel alone. But sometimes even if I'm just going on a road trip by myself, I'll get that feeling before, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just stay home. It's comfortable. What if my tire goes flat? Like you think of all these like
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
wrong scenarios. I try to push myself to go do it anyway. But I feel like traveling gives you a level of badassery. And
Mm.
it's like you get to learn what you want, and you have to rely on yourself, to make decisions. And sometimes you're going to mess up. Sometimes you're going to, go down or take the wrong bus route or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that helps kind of cement your confidence in yourself. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because I'm experiencing what you just described as I get older. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe we shouldn't, or oh, and I've noticed like, oh, I never used to feel that way, but I don't know why that's coming on with age, um, but I also think the thought I can figure this out. And that has helped me so many times. Like, if you're stuck somewhere and you're like, okay, I can figure this out, how to get from A to B, or, how to, talk to someone in a different language. You can almost always figure it out. And when you do figure it out and you have that experience, yes, your confidence, it's just such a positive experience. Yeah, so it's fun. It ends up being super fun.
What is your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Well, I have to say, I went to Tanzania to climb Kilimanjaro, and that's where I met my son's dad. So I think that would go the top of the list as my favorite place to travel. But I also had, we went on safari. Tanzania is amazing. If anyone ever gets a chance to go there, that is just seeing the African animals in the wild was really like phenomenal experience for me. Um, yeah. And I loved traveling in Nepal too. It was so beautiful. And it was just, there's limited roads, there's limited electricity, there's limited power. A lot of the Nepalese people, live in the country, and it's eye-opening to see how how just where you happen to be born, what your experience of in life is. I think that's super powerful too for traveling anywhere. You realize, oh, if I happen to be born here, this would be my life too. And it's really eye-opening.
Have you found, I've heard that sometimes like the more simple living people have, like the happier they are. Have you seen that?
I've thought about that a lot because, for example, I have a lot of photos from my time in Africa, and people would look at them and be like, they're so happy. This is like the quotes, they're so poor, but they're so happy, and my first thought is, well, they're smiling because there's a camera pointed at them. And at the same time, yeah, they do have happiness in their life, and their life is a struggle. My ex-husband's family lived for a long time in a place with no running water, and they had a communal bathroom, and they had limited electricity and obviously limited money. And that's hard work to get through those days. So yeah, I think people all over the world totally find their happiness, but I do think it's a little bit of a, I don't know what the right word is, but something to say, oh, they're so poor and they're so happy. It's kind of like, well, they don't have healthcare. When they get sick, things go bad fast for them. They don't have the security and the safety that we have here.
Yeah, which I imagine is kind of eye-opening, like, makes you grateful for what you do have, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there's so much we just like take for granted or just think like, oh, everybody has this, and it's like everybody
Yeah.
doesn't have it.
Well, it's so funny. I sometimes think about that when I have to pay my electricity bill or, pay my sewer bill or something, instead of being like irritated, oh, I have to pay, I'm like, oh my gosh, so glad to be paying this bill that we actually have a septic system, or sewer system or whatever, so that I can have indoor plumbing, and because I can tell you there's so many, well, people have traveled way more than me, but like, places I was in India, places I was in Nepal, places I was in Africa, like they don't have that. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to be paying those electricity bills.
So you mentioned something earlier, and I can't remember what you said it was. You were traveling, and maybe it was in Nepal, but you were working as well with some company. Can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I was when I had just started being an attending doctor. So you go from like medical school and then do your residency. And then when you're done with that, then you become what they call an attending. So you get a real job, a big girl job. And I had some vacation saved up, and I went for a few weeks to Nepal with this amazing company called Himalayan Healthcare. And we trekked in the Himalayas, right underneath this huge mountain called Kanchenjunga. So we were at one point on that trip, I had one foot in Nepal and one foot in India. Isn't that so cool?
Yes.
So the guy, Anil Parujale, who runs that company, he is a Nepalese, he's from Nepal. And he organizes any doctors, dentists, healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, all the people who go on these trips where you are, trekking. So you would walk for 3 or 4 days to a location, and then you would set up a medical camp, and see patients and try to help the villagers, and then and then move on. And so we did that for a few weeks. So it was camping, it was adventure travel. It's such a win-win. I love that kind of thing because I was doing all the things I like for vacation, but at the same time I felt like I was doing something. And the other thing that's so valuable about what Anil does is that he has decided to stay in Nepal, and he's from there. He's committed to those people. And for example, like when I was on that trip with him, with that group, and I was the first doctor some of the villagers had ever seen. So for example, one of the patients wasn't growing, one of the little kids wasn't growing very well. And the parents were concerned, obviously. And so when I listened to the child's heart, he had a really significant heart murmur, and which is just listening for abnormal pattern of blood flow through the heart. And so we identified that he had a real structural problem. So what Anil did was keeps in contact with that family, raised money to get that child a trip to Kathmandu where he could be seen and evaluated. And he actually ended up needing surgery for his heart, which he underwent and now it had a successful surgery, and now he's thriving back with his family. And so I just have so much respect for Anil and his family and the commitment that they've shown to their people in Nepal. It's amazing. So
Yeah,
that was like a heartwarming, I hope to bring my son there one day, like, in a little while, when he's only 11. So when he can walk for longer periods of time and, that kind of thing, it would be really just so powerful.
Yeah, that experience sounds amazing, like being able to hike everywhere, get your travel part, but then also like really help people who haven't had the opportunity to have healthcare.
Yeah, it was really special, and the villagers, they would know we were coming. And so they were it was such a important thing for them because they could get healthcare, and but also it was like a thing for their town. So everywhere we went, when we arrived, these people would the town, or they're not even towns, honestly, they're like hillsides of there, people just live on hillsides and stuff. And I remember, they would just have planned a thing for us, a meal. And, also like one time they would they wanted to show us their appreciation, and how they did that was by dancing for us and creating performances and singing. And at one point, and plus we would have just walked for 6 or 7 hours, and then we're like, now we're going to this, outside performance at 8 o'clock. I'm just so tired. And one time they said, and it was all in Nepalese, so we couldn't understand a single thing, but they said, okay, now all the doctors, all the trekkers, now you will show us your traditional dances. So with like, thousands of villagers watching us, like 8 of us started dancing. It was hilarious.
Started twerking? No.
I know, I just kind of like, oh my gosh. But then, it's kind of like, oh, well, this is so serious for them. This is not like a joke. And, so I just, I kind of tried to mimic the dance that they had done. So it was something. I'm glad it wasn't on film, put it that way. That was before like TikTok.
So is there anything that you learned from that experience that you apply in your coaching practice today?
The experience of travel, or
like traveling, either traveling alone or like when you're traveling and helping people, like medical patients.
Yeah, I think it's so much, what I think I really learned starting early on is that everybody is coming from a different place. Everyone who, any patient I have that comes to me and sits down in front of me, or any client I have a coaching client sitting down in front of me, they've had different life experiences. They've had different, everybody's just not the same. And so for me, I learned like to be open to, who is this actual person sitting in front of me, and what have they gone through? What have they been through? And I can't possibly know, sometimes I say to myself, like, I can't possibly know the best thing for this person to do. I give my opinion, or I give my medical advice, but then that person who knows their own history and can incorporate that into their life. So I think the travel has broadened my mind to in a much more empathetic, way.
Is that something you tell them, like, or do you just give your opinion and let them do what they want to do with it?
Well, it depends. Like, for example, with a medical situation for my patients that I used to have, sometimes as a doctor, there's certain recommendations. Like, for example, as a pediatrician, I'm recommend vaccinations for people. This can be a dicey topic for people. Some people are really not loving vaccinations, right? So if people push back on that or say like, no, I'm not doing that, then I don't feel it's my job to try to necessarily convince them, argue with them, fight with them. But I can just say, well, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have if you have any. And if you don't, all I can offer you is that this is my best medical opinion or this is my best advice. And but I understand that it's up to you to make the final decision for yourself and your child. We're only, we're allowed to do that kind of from a medical perspective if it's not a life-threatening thing for the child. If it's a life-threatening thing for the child, then it's our obligation to involve, higher authorities in that situation. But that is super rare. That's only happened to me, one time, I think, in my entire 23-year career. So, yeah.
So what got you into being an obesity coach for parents?
Well, I have struggled with my weight my whole life. I was overweight. I was a child carrying extra weight from about 9 or 10 years old. And for me personally, it was a challenge. It was hard. It affected how I felt about myself. It affected my life in so many ways, not necessarily only negatively, but I happen to be a person who didn't want to be carrying that extra weight, but I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have the skill sets to help myself. And then I became a pediatrician and saw so many children and families in the same boat that I was in, struggling. I think no matter what weight you are, if you don't want to lose weight, then fine, you don't have, it's your choice. But if you are a person who, wishes to change that part of your life, you need help. And so I became a coach for parents of kids who are struggling, because parents need help knowing what to do, number one, and then the mindset piece of how to actually do it. Because the medical approach to weight loss, or pediatric weight loss, is how it is now. It's like if your child is having a weight problem, you bring the child to the doctor, and then the doctor talks to your child about the situation and what they can do. The truth is, our kids, their brains aren't wired for that yet. They can't make the changes by themselves to do all of the things that need to be done to create sustainable, achieve a healthy weight and stay at it and live a healthy lifestyle. They're just too young for that. So I found the better way to approach this topic, and it's my opinion that it's really the only way to be successful, is to talk to the parents directly, just work with the parents and have the parents figure out what's going on with them, number one, and then also how to help them be able to create the changes that need to happen for their whole family.
So what is something that you're recommending parents do? Like if your child is struggling with overeating or struggling with obesity, what's one thing you recommend parents do?
Well, there's a lot of things. But the reason why most children today are, if you happen to be a child carrying extra weight, the reason is mostly can be found somewhere in your lifestyle. And what I mean by that is the foods that you're choosing to eat, the amount of movement you're getting in your days, sleep, how much you're sleeping, and then emotional regulation skills. You just mentioned, overeating, and overeating is really tied to emotional eating and things like that. So I work with the parents and figure out, well, let's look at all of these areas. And okay, in nutrition, we know that kids should be eating less highly processed foods, less foods with added sugars. And this is such a tricky area for parents because the water we're swimming in is just saturated with the processed foods, the highly processed foods that our kids love. My son loves, Doritos, all the things. And if you happen to have a child who tends to gain weight easily, you need to understand, number one, what's going on in that child's body when they're eating that food, because weight is hormonal. It's not calories in and calories out like the old school, 100 calories of for example, name any vegetable. 100 calories of carrots creates a different hormonal effect in your body than 100 calories of cookies. The added sugars in the cookies are going to create different hormones. Your glucose is going to go up, your insulin's going to go up, and so weight is hormonally based. So the way that we can control that is by food choices. And so parents, especially parents of younger kids, have so much influence over their food choices. And for parents of teenagers who might be saying, geez, yeah, well, my child, drives, he goes to the grocery store, he buys what he wants, he eats when he's not even home, or, and that's okay. But parents can still have a super powerful, helpful effect for their child by modeling the behaviors that they want their child to learn. We kind of already do this in so many ways, like how parents approach alcohol with their kids, or drugs with their kids, or whatever, safe driving, drinking and driving. We model the behaviors that we want our kids to see. Usually we talk about it, and that's setting the stage for that when they get to that place, we hope that they make those choices for themselves.
So, do you suggest that parents, obviously modeling is going to be part of it, but they just model it, or do you suggest they have a conversation with their kids, or how do they go about that whole thing with their kids?
Yeah, so it really depends on how old your child is. For me, I don't think that first of all, having a conversation with your child about weight can be really fraught with emotion. It can, I remember, and it didn't come from my parents, but I remember things that were said to me when I was 10 years old by people about my weight. And so I think, there are ways. I talk about this a lot with my clients, like, do you need to have a conversation with your child is a question you can ask yourself. And the next question to ask yourself is, what's my goal of having this question? I mean, of having this conversation. Like, what am I trying to get out of it? Because, so say you have a 10-year-old child, there's really probably not a lot of point in having that conversation with the child. Especially if it's just talking about weight. There's certainly a lot of value in talking about health and healthy habits, and we're gonna shift the way we're eating a little bit because I learned that we're eating way too much sugar, and let's see how we feel when we eat less sugar. So you're not talking about weight, you're not kind of making, you're not making them feel bad, or there's still, even kids very young have learned to feel shame and embarrassment about weight, and it's just so rampant in our culture. But if we shift the discussion away from weight to just health and healthy habits, then I think that gives parents a lot of freedom and confidence to talk about health. What are things that we want to do as a family to maintain the good health we have right now and improve it even?
Yeah, it seems like, and then it's kind of like a family mission, like you're all in it together as opposed to,
100%,
yeah.
and especially because lots of families, and I was a child in a family that I was overweight, but a couple of my brothers and sisters weren't. And so we didn't approach it as a family because it wasn't a thing back then. My parents were literally doing the best that they could, and they did a great, they're wonderful. And so but at the same time, you know, it is so powerful to change as a family. And it's really the only way to help your child. You can't expect one child to eat a certain way and everyone else eat a different way. That is just a recipe for disaster emotionally, for
Right.
your child. Yeah.
So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Yeah, believe it's possible for you and really work on, the thought, what is the life, try to figure out what is the life I want. And then going back to that framework of, okay, what are the thoughts I need to be thinking on a daily basis? Like, oh, I can do this. I can figure this out. I'll get the help I need. I'm on my way. Whatever thoughts that you figure out. But I think really, really dialing into the fact that it is possible for you. I do believe families can change, the way that they approach health, and it just takes a little bit of help. It takes a little bit of education, and it really takes the family. The first step is believing it's possible for you. And I sometimes say, "Oh, well, look at that person. They did it. Well, if they can do it, I can do it." And so I would say focusing on, getting believing that it's possible for you.
And Sheila, how can we connect with you?
Um, the Probably the best way is on my website. It's my whole name, SheilaCarrollMD.com. That has my email. I actually have a free download that people could download if they were interested. It's called 10 Simple Steps to Help Your Child Achieve a Healthy Weight. And it gives some strategies, like we talked about earlier, just for the whole family. And it's not a thing that you need to do all of them all at once, but it's like pick one, try it, see how you can tweak your current lifestyle. And then the other tip is like, just, okay, how do I feel after I've made this change? Because when you can really then dial in on like, oh, I feel better, then that gives you some momentum to keep going.
Thank you so much, Sheila. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Oh, thanks for having me, Marie. Thank you so much.
And with that, we'll end our show. All the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it. Okay, let's do 5 takeaways from this episode. Number 1, kids from a very young age have learned to feel shame and embarrassment about weight, and it's just so rampant in our culture. But if we shift the discussion away from weight to just health and healthy habits, then it gives parents a lot of freedom and confidence to talk about health. Number 2, become aware of unconscious thoughts that we're having and creating. Our unconscious thoughts are creating our feelings, and the fact that we become aware of our unconscious thoughts and look at them and ask ourselves, is this thought actually helping me? And then create an experience of the life that you want. Is this the life that you want? Is this not the life that you want? Number 3, have confidence in yourself and a lot of compassion. Remind yourself that you're doing the best that you can, and ask yourself, are you okay right now? Is your child okay right now? And then that helps to ground you in the moment. So you're not thinking too much about the past, not thinking too much about the future. You're merely focused on right now. So when you start to feel that mom guilt, ask yourself, am I okay right now? Is my child okay right now? and use that as a form of grounding. Number 4, think about what and when you have to pay think about paying your electricity bill or your sewer bill. And instead of being irritated about having to pay it, think, oh, I have these bills to pay. And consider yourself lucky and excited to be able to pay those bills because you actually have a sewer, you have a septic system, and other people in other countries don't have that. But sometimes that sense of gratitude is helpful, and just be excited that you have to pay those bills. Number 5, everybody is coming from a different place. Everyone who sits down in front of you has had a different life experience. Everybody's life has not been the same. So be open and think of that and think of what others have gone through and realize that you can't possibly know what is best for them. So you can give your opinion, but it's up to them to incorporate it into their life. Okay, that episode was so good. I can't wait to hear from you, hear what you thought of it. What were your takeaways? What were your favorite parts? So let me know. Reaching out on the gram. Instagram is always the best way. @Ordinary to Badass is my handle. I would love for you to just screenshot it and then put it in your stories and say what one takeaway is. That always makes me excited when people do that. So yeah, I want to hear from you. Okay. I'll talk to you on Thursday when we do 3 reasons why Sheila Carroll is so badass.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.